Welcome to the WEInvested podcast, where we teach you how to save and make more cash. And today on the WEInvested podcast, we have Paris Tyler, the founder and CEO of Vibrant Communications. And she is an award-winning PR and communication specialist with more than 13 years of industry experience. She's worked with the country's most recognized consumer brands and campaigns, including Got Milk, McDonald's, ConAgra Foods, CIROC Vodka, Bad Boy Entertainment, and Intel Security. Miss Paris, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on this evening. I definitely appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. You have a very, very impressive and rich background, and I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I even appreciate you reaching out to have me on your show. So I'm excited to just, share more about my journey and dive into your questions.
For sure. So before we get started, can you let the people know where they can find you on social media?
For sure. So my social media handles it's I am Paris Tyler, and that's on Instagram and Twitter. And then on LinkedIn, you can just search me, Paris Tyler, and I should be, just come up in your search, and definitely connect with me across all social media platforms.
That's great. So let's just jump right into it. What is Vibrant Communications and how did you get it started?
For sure. So Vibrant Communications is an integrated communications agency based in Atlanta, Georgia. So we are all about just telling dynamic and bold narratives, helping brands and our clients just connect with their consumers through various communications tactics. So that can be through media, through influencer marketing, through events, through social media, content creation. And I launched Vibrant in 2016. In 2016, I had actually been working at an agency after leaving Combs Enterprises. And I had always had this desire to really start my own agency. I really did. It was just like with me. But I had gotten let go from a company in 2016, the summer there, and in New York City living. And I just realized that it was just time for me to go ahead and launch Vibrant. So I basically decided to start consulting, threw up like a website, changed my LinkedIn profile, and then from there was able to just get different, clients on board. As far as I think I had that first year, 3 clients, and I decided to actually launch an agency, and I just started brainstorming names. And what I found in PR culture, especially in agency life and PR, and I think it's across all communications verticals from advertising to marketing and probably just in corporate America in general, there's so few of us when it comes to Black, or just people of color. And especially in PR culture, I found that I was sometimes the only Black woman and sometimes the only Black person, in meetings, sitting at the client table. And I just realized that, for brands that are speaking to so many audiences, man, woman, old, young, Black, white, et cetera, you need to make sure that your agencies actually look like the consumers that you are, speaking to, because I think that's where a lot of misses, occur. So basically Vibrant is just all about colorful. It's all about bold. It's all about just dynamic. And that's the type of agency I want to just create, not just with the talent, but also the work that we're creating and doing.
For sure. And that's definitely something that I noticed when I was kind of browsing on your website. It's a picture with a very vibrant purple background. So I feel like, that theme is very present throughout, your online presence for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the one I definitely want to create. I think even with my personal brand, I want Vibrant to just come through with me as a person. I can be, just as bold and dynamic, through even communication, just connecting with people. So I want that to just shine through.
For sure. So what is your definition of public relations?
So public relations is all about the relationship that brands and companies and corporations just hold with their key target audiences. So it's about that reputation. It's about connecting with them, through various verticals, but it is really about the public image and just in maintaining that reputation, maintaining that image in the public light.
For sure. So before we started recording, we were just kind of talking about some of the different places that you've lived, and you've lived in
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, New York City, and Chicago, and these are three of the most vibrant cities in the U.S. So how has living and networking in these cities impacted your career?
Relationships, honestly. I moved to Chicago in 2005 right after college, and I moved to Chicago with the intent of working in PR. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and of course, it's OSU. There's other corporations like Nationwide Insurance that live there, Schaumburg. But I just knew that for PR, I had to move to a major city like a Chicago or New York. So Chicago, New York, and Atlanta has allowed me to really build relationships with people that have ultimately helped with my business. Whether it's just, working at a Weber Shandwick in Chicago and working at various large PR agencies that were able to help me in growing, my background and expertise and touching, the various brands, to even just, being out in these cities that have major events going on. There's always, just networking events taking place in these cities, and being able to just build strong connections and relationships that have either led to me now having clients, or just me being able to get, my foot in the door in some type of capacity, professionally or even personally.
For sure. And so I know that like moving to these different cities, you learn something new, and you like grow each city that you move to, and every time you move you learn something new. But out of these three cities, which was your favorite, and which city would you say benefited you the most?
Yes, I would say so. My favorite city, because I can answer that two ways. So my favorite city thus far is still Chicago. I lived there for 8.5 years. I think there's something about the Midwest that just has this like authenticity. Like the people are just super genuine. They're hardworking. And I feel like they really are all about just like building like real kind of like genuine connections. But I will say that New York really did allow me to, I just benefited the most, living in New York. I think that hustle mentality, that, hitting the concrete jungle, if you make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. I believe that's true. Like the city is just like, it's gritty, it's hard, but you grow so much, you learn so much about yourself. And then being there, I worked for Sean Combs. Like Sean Combs is, $1 million mogul, and being able to say like, I work for Diddy, and actually being, working for Diddy, you do learn more about yourself and like hustling, and just making even connections and relationships, whether it was in media, whether it was across brands. And I worked various, projects, from like the CIROC Apple launch to Puff started making music again when I worked there. So he was actually, recording a mixtape. So I learned more about the music industry, to actually, being a part of the Revolt Music Conference and understanding how business, tech, music all intersect, and really having those deep conversations and understanding thought leadership in that realm. And then even just working at mid-sized agencies, to connecting and just networking across events. I think that a lot of those relationships that I developed in New York City really have followed me to this day. As I have been working with Vibrant, like even when I left, Combs Enterprises, one of my first clients was Aqua Hydrate. And it was because, the team, Aqua Hydrate sits under Combs Enterprises. I left on, good terms, where they reached out and needed some support, with PR around a few initiatives, and just, even then media wise, like media relationships that I have with journalists, who have even left New York and now live in Atlanta with myself. It's just been able to follow me in that way. So I think that it's benefited me the most, and helps me realize too that relationships do matter so much. Like you don't want to burn bridges, you don't want to leave on bad terms, or in any type of capacity, whether it's professional or personal. I think that understanding that this world is small, like the degrees of separation get tighter and tighter as you get older, and just understanding that that person might be the key or your entryway into like the next client or the next partnership for supporting your business.
Man, that's amazing. So it's like you've really been a part of some historic events in like throughout the culture and just throughout American history, period. You know, being a
Yeah.
part of Revolt and working with Diddy, and you know, I grew up watching Making the Band, so that's like that's like legendary. You know.
Yeah. And you know, and I feel like I never worked with Puff in that capacity where it was like, oh my gosh, it's where it's dramatic as far as like what you saw on TV. But I feel like just being in an atmosphere where he brought dope leaders, dope advisors, creative thinkers, very much forward thinking people who are trying to shift the culture, is just always, amazing when you get that much talent in the room. And just even before working in New York, I was a part of McDonald's. And McDonald's, when I worked on McDonald's, it was when they launched their McCafe line. And that's pretty much all the coffees that you see and all the smoothies. And this is when they first launched. I was a part of like that launch, and we were basically hosting events in the Black community in Chicago because like wanting to test and see if like, hey, will this actually work? Will this actually last? And it was just kind of dope to even see how we were testing out the drinks at various like cultural events like Universal Circus to like Chicago has Jazzin' in the Park, and people were loving it. And just to see how like a brand, like that I was a part of like 10 years ago when the Cafe line just launched, and just to see how it just kind of has evolved, to this day.
Was it ever, a little earlier you spoke on, in these companies, they're not much representation for Black women. So was it ever a time where you were in these rooms or in these, meetings, boardrooms as the only, Black female in there? Was it ever intimidating?
Definitely, I would say yes. I would say that when I first started out in PR and I was brought into Weber Shandwick, this is like 2006, to be a part of Got Milk. So Got Milk is like a nationally recognized campaign. And I and a good friend of mine who actually helped me get my job were pretty much like the only two Black women, and I believe the only two Black people at the time that were a part of the account. So she was, of course, she had more seniority than I did. But for me, it was intimidating. I definitely wanted to make sure that my voice was heard, and of course spoke up and, provided ideas and feedback when I could. But I will say that it was, just, especially I think coming from, like college and high school, and I went to schools and that were actually PWIs, like predominantly white. It was still intimidating to be at work in corporate America where you spend majority of your time 8 hours a day, and you're just like you're only seeing yourself, or you might see other individuals, but they might be on other working on other accounts. So it was a challenge. I think that in those environments I did try to find mentorship. I did try to find a release and an outlet to just make sure that, hey, am I the only one who's feeling like this, or just right. As far as wanting to make sure that someone else could empathize with the experience that I was having.
For sure. So you've worked with some of the biggest organizations in the world. Can you remember your first big name clients, and can you remember the emotions that you felt, after you booked that client?
Yes.
Booked that business?
So I will say, as the founder of Vibrant, I will say that my really big client that I booked at the end of 2018 was Cantu. And for me, that was like, I can't even describe how it felt for me. It was like, for sure, like, oh my gosh, like I am talented. Like they do see my worth. And with the proposal that I shared, and even to this day I still work with them. We've worked together for two years. But I think what it did for me is that as someone who is, I'm small, like it's myself, and I do work with other, contractors, and, they're part of my team, and, I can't, they're not quite full-time employees, but they are part of my team. And it's just like, yo, we did this. Like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I think from there, it set the tone of like just me wanting to continually like level up. Like, it doesn't have to just be like, thinking small. Like, I want to go big, it's like go big or go home. I'm going hard. I'm going home. Like, I'm not even going to do it at all. So yeah, it's real. It was like really real when, I was able to like connect with, Cantu through a mutual friend and, to secure them as a client. It was, for me, it was definitely like solidified and validated, basically Vibrant for me. It validated like this vision and mission that I have on, just working with brands that serve, underrepresented communities. Like, those are the brands that I want to support, like those that are working with, whether they're people of color, LGBTQ, women. I want to serve those, brands that are actually connecting with those audiences. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And, Cantu is national. Cantu is like, when you're a natural girl, like, Cantu is probably the first brand that you use on your hair. You still probably use on your hair. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, I say that. People are like, yeah, I know. Guys, men. It doesn't matter. Like, men, women, no matter the age, no matter the race. I feel like that was definitely for me validating.
That's insane, because I still have like Cantu shampoo and conditioner like in my bag now. And I've been using them since like 2013. Yeah, 2013. So that's like major. That's major.
Definitely it has been.
For sure. So on your website, you talk a lot about culture. You've lived in the South, the Midwest, and the North, and they all have different cultures. So what does culture mean to you?
Culture is like, it's a lifestyle. It's like how you just incorporate, whether it's just your background, race, it's religion, it's, the community that you grew up in, your values. I think it all shapes, culture. And I think, what we see today is just pretty much how people are trying to create like lifestyle brands. Like, how can we create a brand that people are just like, I have to have this like every day, or it's just a part of someone's life. And then also how it intersects too with like various aspects of your life. So for me, it's just like, it is like the makeup of like who you are and what you see and what you do, whether it's music and tech or travel, like all of that is just like a part of like culture. It kind of also makes up like who you are as well as like as a person. So even when you're thinking about your consumer and your ideal consumer, your target audience, like you're breaking them down to also like their interests, their passions outside of like education, race, age, location, like all of that is like a part of like someone's culture. So when I think about just shaping and moving, like people are thinking about ways to have keep the people buzzing and talking, and then just incorporating brands as part of like, a lifestyle. And I think I learned more about that while working at Combs Enterprises. Like Diddy had created, he created brands that were a part of lifestyle, like spirit brands, that you drink, when you're out at the club, to Revolt is where you watch, maybe the Breakfast Club, to also thinking about Aqua Hydrate and fitness, and you're drinking that to rehydrate. Sean John, you're throwing it on to, just all of those brands are cultural staples, like they're a part of someone's lifestyle. And I think about the brands that I want to work with are somehow just kind of integrated in wanting to shift culture. And if people, are new brands and they want to figure out that way, I'm here to just like take that journey with them and helping them identify their brand, how they want to communicate their brand to their, the audience that they're looking to target, all of that. So we can just kind of like, move and shape and just really get integrated into everyday life.
For sure. So you've worked in with so many different industries, from music to food, to hair care products. Do you have an industry that's your favorite, or is all of it different and you kind of like it all?
I like it all. And I think that's because I worked at larger agencies that weren't, they were agnostic, meaning that they didn't just serve one type of category or industry. And even when I was at these, agencies, I was pretty much across all types of brands. Like the agency I was at before I went to Combs was a mid-sized agency called DKC, and I worked across like Intel Security to Alberto Foods to also working with like yellowpages.com. So it was just like a myriad of like tech to food as well. And then just, before in Chicago it was like primarily food. But yeah, I think that for me, I'm just intrigued by life, and I'm always just like been this person that's curious about just, all types of things that are going on in the world. But I will say right now, like one of my favorite clients that I just started working with this year is a startup alternative fund called Collab Capital. And they created the largest fund that will invest and support Black founders. And I think that their mission of just wanting to close the racial wealth gap and really just drive an impact on, an industry where, Black founders and entrepreneurs are often overlooked. We're not getting a big piece or a portion of the pie when it comes to venture capital or capital and fundraising. And I love what they're doing and being intentional about the founders that they're supporting, whether it's through economic capital, through resources. And it's just like, it's just not about, selling or just, making connections, but it's being intentional about like a larger issue in this country when it comes to wealth. And that's something that I'm definitely becoming more and more passionate about.
For sure. And I think that's definitely a great initiative to become passionate about. Because like you said, the Black community is underrepresented and overlooked. And it's great to hear that it's a company out here, or it's companies out here trying to level the playing field.
Definitely. I totally agree.
For sure. So, with you being from Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and living in Chicago and living in New York, it's very, very cold in those places. So, how do you like living in it? How do you like living in Atlanta?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the weather. Even though it's been like 30, it's dropping down to like the 30s, 20s. But even during the day, it might not get colder, or it might not get warmer than like 40, like mid 40s, which is like, I would say like a Chicago, New York in around like maybe like March, April. But otherwise, like Atlanta's just warm. Like you're barely wearing a sweater here. I actually had to give a lot of my coats away to some shelters because like I'm a big coat person. I like layers. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not wearing these things. They're just like sitting in my closet. So I just had to start giving them away.
For sure. And so which city had the best food?
Chicago, hands down. A lot of restaurants actually use Chicago as like a test market. So they'll, pop actually launch in other markets. But I just think that like portion wise, like I feel like sometimes New York got caught up on like the frou-frou presentation of it all, and the portions are really small. But I think in Chicago you get like a really good meal, really good portion size for a good price. Like it's by far really good.
For sure. So did you always have an entrepreneurial spirit, or is this something that kind of developed over time?
I think that I will say two part. I think that I've always been a leader. From high school through college. Like in college, I sat on boards of like my sorority to like other organizations. And then in 2011, 2012, myself and three of my friends actually launched a business. It was like an events promotions business called Posh Entertainment. So, definitely just wanting to create experiences around the city through day parties, through other nighttime events, got connected with spirit companies that were looking to like test out new product launches, at various events, or if they were doing like private events and wanted to tap into our crowd, we were helping them and just like curating the room for those experiences. So I think that the entrepreneurial spirit's always been there. I definitely find myself that I would say that I am a leader. that, I am a mentor to people. I would say that, on the job, I feel like I kind of just always like walked to my own beat. Like I felt that sometimes that was stifled a bit as far as just kind of like, I wanted to do something, one way. And there was like, this whole like credo that you had to follow. And I was just like, I'm not with that. I just don't, like the office politics, I just never was really about. But I still know I'm still a team player at the end of the day. Like I'm never one that wants to just like work alone. Like even though I'm in Atlanta by myself, like I'll do, kind of like virtual co-working with friends. Even before the pandemic, I was like going to have like co-working dates with, other entrepreneurs just to kind of like bounce ideas off of them. And like I said, I have a team, like I do have a team that I lean on and that I want to empower because like I said, I feel like there's, 1 plus, like, what is it? 1 + 5 = 6, but then also 3 + 3 does and 4 + 2 does. So it's like, there's various ways to get to the solution. So I just always, always wanted to empower people and feel like, hey, like I feel like there's a gift inside of all of us, and any way that I can help bring that out, and bring out, your talent, I want to do that.
For sure. So, one thing I noticed is that you have a great online presence, from the social media to your websites. So how has social media helped to expand your business?
Yeah, so I would say that I definitely have made some connections on social media, whether it's through Instagram, Twitter. I found, I was able to connect with a client now. I work with The Plug, which is a digital media platform that highlights Black tech and innovation. She actually put a call out on Twitter, and a friend of mine tagged me, like retweeted it and tagged me. And that's how I got, submitted a proposal and everything. And even with Clubhouse now, like I'm on Clubhouse, I feel that Clubhouse, I hop around from room to room. Like some of them are more social and personal, and some of them are more professional. And I find that in the business rooms, I try to, like, if I can, I try to hop in on stage and introduce myself, and hopefully people will connect with me. And people have definitely DM'd me and asking, could we connect? But then I find that a lot of my business has been very much so referral based, meaning that, whether it was a client that connected me with a friend, or a friend connected me with a friend of theirs who's looking for PR, I find that PR is very much so, I think, a strong referral, like word of mouth business, because it's like, I think that you want to lean on someone's testimonial to make sure that that's like, hey, they know what they're doing. It was a good fit. Social media can be, all kind of like smoke and mirrors. You just feel like, oh, it looks good, but is it really good? Almost like if you see, a couple in a relationship, it's like on social media, they look good, but then, behind closed doors, like things ain't as tight as you think it is. So I do think that, social media is a great way for me to tout my client work, like sharing like media hits, event coverage. I share like blog posts that I write, on social media. And then I find that I have an email newsletter. So like I said, my communications agency is all about integration. So we're not just using one tactic, we're using media, we're using social media, we're using influencers, events to really try to make sure we drive the message home for clients.
For sure. And so do you feel like, COVID has kind of slowed things down as far as networking wise? Well, you know what, matter of fact, I heard Atlanta never really closed. I heard Atlanta was always wide open.
But you know what, I think on the social tip, so I'll say this, on the social tip, yes, Atlanta's open. So like nightlife and all of that. However, a lot of the networking events, like the Atlanta Biz Chronicle does like a networking, luncheon, and it's virtual, or, other events, professional events. I feel like I've seen a few like launch events for some companies, but I don't think anyone wants to take that risk. Like, to have a professional networking event and someone leaves there and there's a scare, that's a huge liability. That can be a huge hit to your brand. So I don't think anyone's willing to take that risk. But yeah, COVID has definitely hurt networking tremendously. Like, and I think we're all a bit fatigued on the Zoom and IG Live networking events. You know, we're doing it still, but there's nothing like, I feel like, that connection in person, just really being able to connect with somebody. But I will say, like, I've been trying to take advantage of this time, because this is probably the most time people have ever had to really be intentional about how they use it and building relationships, and whether it's like launching brands. I will say that I have never, like, this whole year has been about really how can I make Vibrant grow, and making sure like all things are in order on my side. And it's been great. Like, from like my business website to applying for certifications for my business. Like, I think, when will we ever have that much time, like, where we can't travel as much, we can't go out as much? So make the most, use of it.
For sure. So, when you were first starting Vibrant, how was that? Was it kind of a struggle, or did things fall into place kind of easily for you? How was that transition from, working in a corporate America 9 to 5 to doing your own thing?
So I will say that it was a struggle. It's a lot of testing and learning. I think we all seen that meme, like, kind of like, just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. So that was kind of me. Like, it wasn't perfect, but I was just like, I started. Like, my mentor, who's a gentleman out of Chicago that I met when I was at a boutique agency, he was like, look, throw up a website. He was like, you can download your LinkedIn contacts, and that's your email list, and just like let people know what you're doing. So that's what I did. I threw up like a Squarespace site. I downloaded all my LinkedIn contacts and started a media, like, my first email newsletter was like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing now. And from there, it was it was like a rocky journey. Like, I would definitely, I would advise people. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was like, getting like a business credit card. So I would try to tell people, like, remain as liquid as you can. But now that I'm in year 5, I'm definitely like looking at various lines of credit, because now I'm at the point of where I have like profit, like I'm profitable. I think, you're upside down, those first 4, like maybe even 5. But I feel like year 5 is like kind of the year that you're like, okay, now I see what needs to happen. I know what, changes I need to make. And yeah, that's where I'm at. I will say that too, like, as far as processes, it's a big deal for your business. Like, what are you using to communicate with your teams? Do you have an accountant, bookkeeper? Are you using like a project management tool like Asana? What are you using to invoice clients? Like, all of that, like, I feel like now I have it down to a T, where it's like, okay, now I'm understanding how I'm running a well-oiled machine, and just kind of like what's going to make my business grow and flourish, and just, remain, in the green, or black, I guess I should say. I say green, black, moving forward. So yes, so that's definitely key.
For sure. And so, I've heard you mention that you hire out contractors, and, you have business mentors and kind of people that you bounce ideas off of. So, what's the importance of having a good team, and how did you build your team?
Yeah, so it's super important to have a good team. I think that when you get to the point of where you feel like, I need to hire someone to do this, I would say, and if you can afford it, do it. Like, free up your time where you feel like your strengths are and your talents will just flourish. Like, of course, I learned how to do things like graphic design, or, like using Canva or whatnot. But then I just realized, like, I really need some help here. I really need someone to help me, so I can make sure I'm also running the other clients that I have and maintaining them. And I also, like, this is test and learn too with the team and staff. Like, I've worked with some great people, and then I work with some not as great people. And then sometimes it's understanding the not so great people might not be great at what you want them to do, but they're great at other aspects of your business that you can just see them shine and they can really just flourish in. So I've also learned that part too. I've learned how to just kind of understand people's strengths and understand their talents and passions, because what you want is for those to kind of really shine through when they're working for you. And those women, I've met them through like I said, on social media. I put out the ask and they send me an email. Someone saw me, saw a profile on me and just asked to have coffee. And she ended up working with me for 3 years. We actually just parted ways, and no ill intent. It was just like she wants to pursue her own business and grow that. But it was amazing how she just helped Vibrant grow. Like, she was definitely a part of the journey and just supporting clients and being amazing. And then, like I said, like, just understanding where people's passions and their talents lie, like, will help you understand, like, will it be a good fit, just as far as like personality and making sure that the client work is done.
For sure. So what would you say is your favorite part about being an entrepreneur?
I think the autonomy, just kind of like, this is what I'm building. It's like my favorite part. Like, I get to grow this into what I want it to look like. And then I would say the other part too is like, I feel like this is like my purpose and part of like what I'm supposed to be doing. Because as an entrepreneur, you have these moments and every day, like, you're like, oh my gosh, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And then I feel like God sends me like these various moments of like clarity, like, yep, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Like, every moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doubting or I'm just questioning, he's like right in my ear, like, or sitting just kind of some moment to let me know, like, yeah, this is what it is. So I think that, why I moved to Atlanta too was like, in New York, the cost of living is crazy. And I really wanted to build and grow my business. Like, I really wanted to be intentional about that. And living in a city in the South, like Atlanta, where Black entrepreneurship is celebrated, where it's just like, there's such a strong foundation, for years here. And I think it's just amazing. Like, I think that being able to build a business down here that will, I hope will drive impact, that will become recognizable, is just truly, truly, important to me.
For sure. So what would you say is the single most important reason for your success?
Ooh. Twofold: consistency, and I think remaining humble. I think those are two big portions. I think that I'm realizing that, what got me here is like, I think about those days in New York City and being in my, being at my desk and just grinding it out, doing the work. And then I think about just remaining humble. Like, I'm never braggadocious, like, look at me, boom, boom, boom. Like, I definitely speak facts. I speak insights. I tell the truth. But I also think there's something to be said about remaining humble as well, about the journey, because you can lose it all, in a second. I had a moment but I had a moment in New York where I had literally no clients. Like, I had no clients. I was just networking my ass off. Like, I was networking still because I had a vision for what I wanted Vibrant to be. And I was like, okay, I have to stick to this vision. This is what I want it to be. And it wasn't until like I came to Atlanta with a friend. We attended the 21 Summit 21, which is put on by Blavity. And she basically was like, hey, have you thought about moving to Atlanta? I feel like Atlanta could have you and what you have to offer. And my clients sit everywhere. Like, my clients sit from LA to Connecticut. I have clients here, but I don't have to, I can do the work from anywhere. But I will say that when I came down here and was able to pick up a client and had to travel back and forth, and then I was able to pick up another client, I was like, okay, then I have to move here. And I will say that even in my conversations with clients, it's like, yes, I can do that, but I'm never just bragging and overselling myself. I'm always just letting people know like, I don't have expertise in that, or just like, I try to always just be as real and be as honest and transparent with clients, because I think I would want the same from them. Even in life, I just feel like you want that. So consistency and humble, I would say those are like the two pieces that have got me where I'm at.
I hear consistency a lot, but I don't hear people say, being humble. So like, how do you keep yourself grounded, like with so much success, like with a background like yours, like with the places that you worked and the people that you had the chance to, network with and build relationships with?
Oh, that's so good. I think just as far as like, I think I'm all about I think a lot of people don't understand too, that great leaders serve. So, and I think a part of being a servant is remaining humble. And I don't think that a lot of people understand that. I think a lot of people are caught up, even on, social media. I think a lot of people are caught up with the followers. They're caught up in like pushing out the content, but it's like, does the content make sense? Is it part of your larger in-game strategy? And I just remember a lot of people saying that, you think about even Barack Obama, like great leader, great president. And I think a part of his whole aura and a part of who he was, it's like he really was about serving people. And for me, I think I want to serve my clients. I want to serve a younger generation that want to step into PR and communications, because I will be honest, like I feel like a lot of people think that it's a matter of just, I could just be a publicist, and not understanding that you really do have to build relationships and you really do have to do the work in being a communicator. Like a strong aspect of being a publicist means that you are a strong writer. And I've seen publicists who can't put a coherent sentence together. They don't know how to, really speak well, but they know how to talk that talk to sell you on their services. And I think that's where we are in just this whole social media game right now. I think a lot of people can talk that talk. They can sell you on, these courses and these ebooks. But then when it comes down to it, do they really know how to do the work, or do they really know what they are doing? And when you said, like, I do have like almost 15 years of working at large agencies and small agencies and a corporation. And I think that a lot of that experience is great. It is, my resume is amazing, but then I also know that remaining humble is a lot of the aspect of like why I'm still here. Can I toot my own horn a little bit more? I'm sure, I'm working on that. I'm working on trying to, put myself out there a little bit more. But I think that when I'm so busy on trying to make sure that my clients are in the spotlight, I don't want to try to like, overtake that or overpower that, as a publicist. Like my job is to get them coverage and get them highlighted. And I never want people to see me more than my clients.
For sure. So who do you look up to for inspiration and why?
I love Shonda Rhimes. Like, I think that her story, her journey is just like amazing, from, being a writer to writing books, and now she's got this partnership with Peloton. I think that's like just so dope. I love like other people that I just like, I'm inspired by, like Steve Pamone, who is like Beyonce's like rainmaker. He helps her with like securing a lot of her partnerships. Her publicist, Yvette, is definitely someone that I definitely, for sure, just think that she's like great, an inspiration. And then there's other women who aren't in, necessarily in my field. Like one of my clients is Julberg Solomon. She's dope. She is like a tech unicorn of, building her company Part Pick and selling it to Amazon. And here she is now working at Google for startups, helping and supporting Black businesses and getting the resources they need. And then she's a part of Collab Capital and investing in businesses. So I think that a lot of my, a lot of the people I admire and who are inspired by are, their bosses, and they're doing amazing, things in their field. But then I think they're also looking to make an impact in this world, and, just like with the work that they're doing as well.
For sure. And so how do you define success as an entrepreneur?
Whew. That's good. That's a good question. I think that every day can be a success. Every day that you touch on your business and cross off something on your to-do list is a successful day. I mean that with the utmost honesty, like, because as an entrepreneur, you have so much, that you have a lot of entrepreneurs suffer from imposter syndrome. Like, should I be here? Am I supposed to be here? To just even the struggle of like making ends meet, like financially and all of that. It's just like it weighs on you. And I think any day, like today for me was a success because I was like, oh my gosh, I changed my PR engagement form that I send to prospective clients. I changed it to a type form. Like I now have it on a new platform and for me, I feel like it's going to help my business and just process these in a better way. Even helping my clients like with wrap-up reports and getting those off and just sharing insights. It's like those every day can just be a success. So I think that as an entrepreneur, I think anything that moves you closer to your larger goals of like, whether it's revenue, whether it's like income, landing that dream client, whatever, I think that anything that moves you closer is like a success, it's a win.
How would you like for people to remember you and your company?
I definitely want this to be long lasting. Like I want Vibrant, like when I'm gone, I want Vibrant to still be here. And I want people to remember Vibrant as an agency that really kind of just made its mark, working with, small and big brands and just really doing dynamic, and great work for sure.
What does the future of Vibrant Communications look like?
So, thinking like short term, I really want, and when the world opens back up, I really would love to have an office space, like a real office space, and definitely growing my team. So like growing the roster, growing the team, like is short term. And then I think longer term, it's just like, it's this award-winning agency, that's winning awards, that is really, I think, being a part of like truly impactful work, doing more pro bono work, like I really want to step my toe in that as well, in supporting organizations for sure.
Man, that's awesome. So here on the WEInvested podcast, before we end every episode, we like to play a rapid fire question game at the end. So
Okay.
If you're up and willing to play, I'll get started.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So question number 1, where's your favorite place to travel?
I love Spain.
Spain. Why Spain?
It has everything that you want. It has the beach, it has culture, it has fashion, it has amazing food, amazing wine. It's like a little happy place for me. Like it's like everything I need. And it's walkable too. Like you can just walk around. So it's really dope.
Okay. Question number 2, what song represents your life the most?
Ooh, I would say Jill Scott's Golden. Like living my life like it's golden. Like I really feel like that's what I really want my life to be. It's just like this beacon of light, I'm just shining.
Nah, for real, I can't even lie. So like 2 years ago, 2018, I was listening to that song every morning on repeat when I wake up.
Oh, really?
I swear it just gets you in that right mindset.
It does. It does. It really does. That is like my song. That is like when I think about like what's like, like kind of like what's your theme music? Like that's it.
Facts. Okay, last question. What's an amazing thing that you did that no one was around to see?
Oh my gosh. That's a hard one. Oh my gosh. No one was around to see, but I did it. Oh my gosh. Wesley, I don't know if I'm going to be able, I can't think of anything.
Nah, it's all good. That's a tough one. I know I put you on the spot.
Yeah. What have people said? Like, how have people answered that one? Or what do you think?
One that I remember, I had a guest on the show and she said she ran a marathon and then died at the finish line, like literally died and then came back to life. So that was crazy.
Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah, but
oh my gosh.
Just based off your story and like listening, I think one of the coolest things that stood out to me, and I'm sure no one was around to see it and really know what was going on, when you say you were in New York and you had like 0 clients, but even though you had 0 clients, like you were still hustling, like you still kept the faith and like never gave up.
Yeah, no, that's real. That's so real. Like when I say like, I literally was like, oh my gosh, like I was blessed with people around me that were like, hey, you want to go to this event? Or hey, I'm going to dinner. Like it's on me. And this is like, because I wasn't even sure I was going to eat some days. Like I was just like, oh my gosh. But like I said, I had somewhat also let go of a few clients because I thought I was going back to corporate. This was like a year where I was like, maybe I was supposed to go back to corporate. And I thought I had gotten this job. So I was kind of being like a little eager, but then I was like, well, I have this vision of what I want Vibrant to be. So even if I don't get the job, I was like, I kind of don't think I need to keep this client on. And then it was like, boom, like nothing was going on. So I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think anyone knew that. Like, I think that when people would say, how's work going? I would just say like, oh, it's going well. Like, I was just kind of like saying that. And then I will never forget, like me and one of my really good friends, like she was upset that I didn't really do anything with her for her birthday. And I had to let her know, like, girl, I'm out here struggling. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I'm ashamed. Like, I was like, it's not like, anything against you. And she's like, why did you tell me? Like, we're friends. Like, you're supposed to just tell me. And I was like, I know, but when you have that type of, when you're thinking like, I'm just trying to make ends, just trying to, keep my head up. It was definitely a trying time, but I feel like those trying times have gotten me here and helped me understand like what I need to do to remain here as well.
For sure, man. I definitely think you have a story of like perseverance and triumph for sure. And I just want to, thank you again for joining us and spending time with us. Man, you have an amazing story with an amazing background, and I know this episode will be legendary when it comes out.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you for reaching out. This has been fun. I really like your interview style. Like, you definitely are great. Like, I appreciated like the conversation, the flow. I could tell you really thought about how you were asking these questions because it kind of helped in telling my story and shaping that story.
Oh man, thank you so much. Have a great one.
Have a good one. Thank you.